Hello, everybody, and welcome back to thejeffcowan.com. This is the Jeff Cowan coming to you with his podcast, Right Service, Write Your Own Paycheck, the path to making $100,000 a year, because people doing that job, writing service, right now in the United States of America, 15 to 20% of them are making that amount of money. And if you're one of those people, hallelujah, celebrate, you're one of the best of the best. If you're not one of those people, then you're listening to the right podcast, because I'm going to show you how to not only make $100,000 a year, but how to get perfect survey scores and customer retention that will knock it out of the park. All right, so you keep listening. Thank you for coming back. I want to talk about a subject today that is near and dear to my heart, and that is accountability. Now, the reason I chose to talk about this today is because, like I've mentioned in past podcasts, man, this thing is off the charts. We are getting unbelievable ratings on this. I get all kinds of emails and telephone calls every single week, people asking me different questions. And one that I've been getting here on a consistent basis, so it's time to address this, is, Jeff, I've been a manager for a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, been a business owner, whatever. We have worked with our service advisors, trying to get them to do the things that we know would make them more successful. Simple things like greeting the customer the right way, answering the telephone a certain way, walking around cars, memorizing some word tracks, memorizing closes, doing processes, and we just can't get them to do that, and we don't understand why. Is there any suggestions you have, something you can do to help us out? And I definitely can, because what we're talking about here is this. If you can't get your people to do what you're asking them to do, I mean, this is probably a sign of this. It's probably because of fear. I find most of the time that people can't get their people to do what they want them to do. It's because they're afraid to hold them accountable. Because, see, when you hold people accountable, if they don't, to hitting certain numbers and doing certain things a certain way, if they don't do it, there's repercussions. And I find many, many people are afraid to enact those repercussions, whether it's a cut in pay, whether it's write them up, send them home for the day, or even firing them. Yes, I said firing them, okay? They're afraid to do this. Why? Because they think these people are their friends and family. All right, they mistakenly believe that these are my friends and family. You know, I get it. You're with them probably more than you are your own family. You get to know these people, and I hear things like this all the time. Boy, I can't do that to her because she's a single mom and she's got kids. What would happen if she didn't work here? That's the right question. What would happen if she didn't work here and you put somebody in the chair that could get you the numbers? You know, we can't get rid of Fred. You know, Fred's been with us for 10 years, and you know he just became an empty nester. And what happens? You know, Fred, if we let Fred go, you know, what would happen? Well, probably what would happen is you'd find somebody to hold him accountable, and they'd get you numbers, and you would be more successful. Because, see, the way I look at it, it's all based on this. I don't think it's fair that one person on a service drive that doesn't want to walk around cars, that doesn't want to memorize word tracks, that doesn't want to change and do processes that have been proven to make the customer happier, which means they spend more money, fill out the surveys, and come back and do more business, give me the retention. I don't think it's fair that one person decide they don't want to do that and dictate to you and the rest of your shop how much money you're going to make, how successful you're going to be. I don't think it's fair for any one person to have that power unless their name is on the building or they're the manager. We have something here at Pro Talk that we run by, and I love it. And it's simple saying. It's, you know, Pro Talk isn't about any one person, including me. Pro Talk is about every one person at Pro Talk, because we understand that if one person doesn't do their job, it affects everybody else. And I don't think it's fair if I put a salesperson in a chair and they can't sell. I don't think it's fair to my trainers that have to sit home. I don't think it's fair if I got a trainer out there that can't get numbers. My salespeople tell people we're going to get numbers. They can't. I don't think it's fair to that salesperson. So if you can't do your job, then, you know, maybe this is in the right place. It's not about any one person. It's about every one person. So how do we do that? Well, you got to hold them accountable. Now, here's the thing. When we talk about holding people accountable, it's the key that will help you maximize your full potential. It's the key to making sure that you get a business that is as strong as it can be. It's accountability. Now, let's talk about how do you hold somebody accountable. Well, to hold somebody accountable, you have to have minimum standards. And minimum standards, let's be clear about this. Minimum standards isn't they show up on time. Minimum standards isn't they stay their whole shift. Minimum standards isn't they answer the telephone. I mean, of course they're going to do that. I mean, that's part of the job. Minimum standards, I'm talking about performance minimum standards. And there's a few areas that I recommend that you set them in and hold your people accountable to. So let's take a look at them. All right. Customer paid hours per repair order. There has to be a minimum standard. Now, you decide where you want to put it, but keep in mind, like I've said over and over and over, I've yet to step on a service drive of any kind that's not fully capable of producing 2.5 hours per repair order, including oil changes. I mean, it's a real number. We see it happen all the time. Name the service drive, the company, doesn't make any difference. You know, that's a number. So maybe I'm not saying your minimum standard should be 2.5, but I'm just saying, you know, why would you make it 1.3? You know what I mean? All right, so minimum standard hours per repair order, customer pay, including oil changes. You're going to want a minimum standard effective labor rate. Now, it's important you measure that because you can get your hours per repair order by just discounting stuff, you know, whatever, right? So effective labor rate, which should be somewhere around 92 to 93, maybe as high as 94% of your door rate, okay, it tells you how effective they are at selling. So there should be a minimum standard there. There should be a minimum standard in total sales for the month. There should be a minimum standard in survey scores and customer retention. Those are the things that you want to measure. Now, when you measure them, you have minimum standards, you know you have a policy in place that here's what happens if you hit them, you get to stay. Here's what happens if you exceed them, you may make more money, that's up to you as the owner or manager. But here's what happens if you don't hit them. You get retrained. If you still don't hit them, you might retrain them again. If you still can't hit them, then you can't sit in that chair. Now, here's why this is good. Service people want them. You will attract the best of the best. You know what I mean? I mean, you take a look at the New York Yankees, whether you love them or you hate them, they've got a storied past, they've won more World Series than anybody else, and here's by God what somebody knows, you know, they all want to play for the New York Yankees. Why? Because when you're playing for the New York Yankees, you know you're playing for the absolute best ball club, perceived ball club in the world. Right now, in the world. And you know, though, if you sign on with them, that you're going to be held accountable. You're not going to be able to stay on the team unless you can hit their minimum standard, okay? So you're going to attract the best of the best. The second thing that it does is it runs off lazy people. Lazy people don't want to be held accountable. They just want to show up. They just want to do what's best for them, and they want to go home. So it's going to run those people off, so it's good for that. And then the other thing that it does, minimum standards, is it creates a culture of change and growth. You know, it shows people that, hey, look, we're going to train, we're going to change, we're going to do whatever it takes to be successful, and it's a real positive vibe. So what's the problem with holding somebody accountable? Well, it's like I started out the podcast with, is because we mistakenly believe that these are our friends and family, and let me just make sure you understand what the difference is here, okay? Friends and family is somebody that might knock on your door at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday on their day off and offer to wash your car. That's friend, that's family, help you wash the car. If they're not doing that, they're not friends. So if they're not friends, they're not family, what is it then? It's a business deal. You have a business deal with these people. I pay you to do this. I pay you to do it this way. I pay you to get these results. And if you do, you continue to get to stay and you continue to get paid. If you exceed those results, you might even do better. But if you don't hit those results, then you simply can't sit in that chair. It's a business deal. Your people see it that way. They see it as a business deal. I mean, if you think these are your friends and family, miss a check once and see how many people stick around. Now, this is a real big pitfall to fall into, and I've fallen into it myself. I mean, so I know I'm speaking from the heart here. I'm speaking from experience. You know, I used to make this same mistake. And I'll tell you how I learned it. But before I do, I got to tell you about Lightspeed VT. Now, they're out of Las Vegas, Nevada, and they own a training company. It's a training platform company. Their number is 702-369-4260. Again, 702-369-4260. Now, business owners and managers, here's what I call these guys. They're going to show you how to set up a training platform. They're going to put all your colors on it, your logos. It's going to be all yours, right? And they're going to take the training you have, regardless of what it is. They're going to show you how to download it into that system, divide it up into small videos, and they're going to show you how to put a testing mechanism in place. So now when your people watch your training, you not only know they watched it, but they actually watched it and they either passed the test, meaning they understand it, or they didn't pass the test and you need to work with them. It's a great training tool. They also have access to other people's training, industry experts and international trainers, the whole thing. They can load you up with all kinds of stuff. And here's what's great about their platform. If a device can hook up to Wi-Fi, like phones and iPads and computers, they can watch this thing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week from any of those things. Call Lightspeed. When you do, tell them the Jeff Cowan from thejeffcowan.com told you to call them. They'll do something special, which means they're going to give you a special price. All right, so back to this. How did I learn about employees aren't friends and family, but rather it's a business deal? Well, up to 2008, ProTalk had been in business for about 20 years. And man, we were just rocking and rolling. I mean, we were so busy, we were turning business away. And I had great people working with me. I surrounded myself with great people. Now, I knew that some of those people weren't the best at what they did, but man, they were getting numbers, you know. And I knew we could have been a little bit sharper in some sales areas. We could have been a little bit sharper over here and there. But man, we were just rocking and rolling. And it was really hard for me to hold these people accountable to doing better, even though we were knocking it out of the park, because I mistakenly believed they were my friends and family until 2008. Because in 2008, as you know, September that year, the recession hit. Now, when that hit, me and the wife lost 70%, 70% of our income. But we made a decision. We were willing to take that hit when we didn't have to. We were willing to take that hit because the people who signed on to work with us at Pro Talk, I guaranteed them when they came to work, they would make a certain amount of money for doing what they did. And I'm here to tell you that during from September 2008 to all the way through September 2009, the worst part of the recession, not one person made less money than they did the year before because I sacrificed our income to make sure they had what they needed for themselves and their family. Now, there's only one person, the other person that their pay did go back. It was the person who did the deals. There were no deals coming in. Okay, so I cut her back to part-time. But outside that, everybody else maintained, and a few people actually increased their income. All right? Now, why did we give some? Because you're my customer. And the auto industry took a real big hit, so the phone wasn't ringing. People wouldn't take my phone call, right? So let's fast forward now to April 19th, 2009, the lowest point, in my opinion, for me personally in the recession. My wife wasn't sleeping, and I knew she wasn't sleeping. We'd just gotten married. We'd only been married less than, I think, 18 months, just gotten a new house, cars, the whole shebang, right? But she wasn't sleeping. So finally, on April 19th at 1 o'clock in the morning, I got out of bed, I turned the lights, and I simply looked at her and said, "What's wrong?" She looked at me, and she just ask, point blank, are we going to be okay? Now, my wife's a smart lady, and at the time she was really helping me out with Pro Talk. She saw the book. She saw what was going on. And, you know, for your wife to ask somebody with an ego the size of mine that question, I mean, it was a powerful moment. And I learned two things that day, and here's what I said. Without missing a beat, I looked at her and said, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Pro Talk. Because, see, her and I dated for 6 or 7 years before we got married. I said, so let's just look at it for what we had. I mean, look at all the people we got to meet, the places we got to go, the things we got to do. I mean, if nothing else, we got all those memories. I don't know what's going to happen to Pro Talk. I'm going to do everything I can to keep it running, but I don't know what's going to happen. But here's what I do know. You have nothing to worry about because you married a salesperson. And I am an excellent salesperson. I am great at selling product. I'm great at moving product. I'm great at holding price. I'm great at holding gross. I'm great at collecting big commissions. You don't have nothing to worry about because when you walk down that aisle, I told you to pick out the house you wanted, and if this is the one you want, we're not losing it. I told you to pick out the car you want to drive, and the one in the garage, if that's the one you want, it's not going anywhere. I promised you you'd always have clothes and you'd be fed. You'd never go hungry. You married a salesperson. You have nothing to worry about. Now, I learned two things that night. The first is that when you're a salesperson, you'll never be unemployed in the United States of America because salespeople are needed to move any product. That's a topic for another podcast. But I also learned that these people that I thought were my family were actually part of the problem. Because here's what I learned. These people I thought were my family that I was protecting, that I took the big financial hit for so they didn't have to, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Not one time when I was going through that did one of my trainers call me up and say, hey, look, Jeff, I just finished up on the East Coast. It's 5 o'clock. That means it's only 2 o'clock out in California. Can I get in the database and make some telephone calls? Not one time did they do that. Not one time did one of those trainers who are off for a week because they work 4 or 5 weeks and they spend a week at home. Not one time they call and say, look, I'm sitting at home the next week. Can I get in the database, make 50 or 60 phone calls a day and get this thing rock and rolling again? Not one time did they do that. Not one time did anybody that works in my office come in when I was working on Saturdays and Sundays putting together workbooks and say, Jeff, can I help you out with that? Not one time did they do that. Not one time did anybody offer to go with me and help me with all the free workshops I was doing and all the free stuff I was giving away so that everybody else can eat. Not one time did they do that. Now, I'm not bitter and I'm not mad, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. They saw the situation for what it was. It was a business deal. We were friendly. We acted like family, but at the end of the day, we weren't friends. We really weren't family. It was a business deal. I paid them to show up for a certain amount of time to perform a certain thing, and then I paid them. And if they did it, they got paid. And I tell you, it changed me forever. Because from that point forward, I drew a line in the sand. I said, from this point forward, here's how I want things done. No argument, because here's the results I know we can get, and here's the results that you will be expected to get sitting in whatever chair that you're sitting in. Here's the good news. If you do it my way, you'll get the numbers, and if you get the numbers, you have nothing to worry about. You exceed the numbers, then I will reward you for that. But if you don't hit the numbers, can't do what we need done the way I want it done, then you can't sit in that chair. Now, I can tell you this. I lost my best trainer when I drew that line in the sand. I lost my best salesperson when I drew that line in the sand. But you know what? everybody else got it. And everybody else liked it, because now all of a sudden they saw there was no favoritism, there was no free pass, that if you're going to show up and go to work, that this was a great opportunity, it was a great company to work with, and I was a great guy to work with. Now this may sound very militaristic to you, it's not. You call anybody today at Pro Talk and ask them what I'm like, they'll tell you. Hey, and here's what I think they'll tell you, he's a great guy. He'll tell you what he wants, how he wants it done, what results he wants. If you get those results, you have nothing to worry about. You don't even have to talk to the guy. Exceed the results, he'll even give you bonuses. But if you don't get them, he'll train you, he'll retrain you, and then if you still can't get them, then you simply can't sit in the chair, because Pro Talk is not about any one person, it's about every one person. We do not allow one person to dictate how successful the rest of the business is going to be, and I recommend you don't let that happen either. Hold them accountable, okay? Train them, show them what you want, how you want it done, and make it company policy. Hold them accountable to hit certain numbers, and if they hit them, then fine. If they exceed them, reward them even more. If they don't hit them, then make the tough call, because I would never allow one person in my business to dictate how successful everybody else is going to be. That's just the way I see it, okay? And I'll tell you, advisors, you want accountability, because when they hold you accountable, then you know you're working for somebody that's real. You know that somebody's going to help you maximize your opportunity, and get you the pay, the survey scores, the retention, and everything you want, so you can have the maximum lifestyle that you so deserve and you want for yourself. Hey, I appreciate you listening today. I hope you enjoyed the message. It's a great message. If you practice what I'm telling you here, it will work for you. Somebody called me up though after the last one. They said, you know, you talked about your one dog, the brown one, Weldon, but you didn't talk about your other one, Zoe. Well, I've used her pictures before, so here's a picture. I love that dog too. She's my best friend too, and you'll see she's got a little birthday cap on because it was recently her birthday. She turned 9 years old. I love that little dog. And I love you, and I appreciate you watching. So I want you to keep watching. Come back next week, because if you like this message, you're going to love next week's message, because it's going to be great too. And until then, make it a great week, a great day, a great everything, because I'm going to do that. So this is the Jeff Cowan from thejeffcowan.com signing off. Thanks for listening.